On today's Locked On Giants podcast, David Syversten of Ourlads Scouting Services joins us to discuss Giants draft direction and how certain prospects might blend seamlessly into the existing talent.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode of Locked On Giants is brought to you by FanDuel. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the number one sports podcast network in America. I'm your host, Patricia Traina, credential member of the Giants media for Locked On, as well as for New York Giants on SI, which is where you can find our written work. And as always, we welcome on in our Blue Crew community members, our everydayers, our newcomers, and everybody in between. And thank you for spending part of your day with us here on the Locked On Giants podcast. In today's episode, I'm very happy to welcome in one of my special guests that I promised you. We had him on last year. A lot of you loved him, and so I had to bring him back because I have great respect for the work he does. He is David Syversten of Ourlads, a.k.a. Cy. You probably know him if you've been on BBI. He's known as Cy over there. And David, glad to see you again.
Yep, glad to see you as well. Another trip around the sun, another NFL draft to get ready for. This is the best time of the year. You got to love the process if you want to do this. And I love every little bit. Combine starts today. Can't wait to get it going.
Yeah, absolutely. The workouts, of course, starting with the defensive line and the linebackers. And, Cy, let's start there with the defensive side of the ball, because I am of the opinion, and you can tell me if you agree or disagree, but I'm of the opinion that the Giants need a few more pieces on that defensive side of the ball. Cornerback, some additional defensive line depth. Obviously, linebacker is a big issue. Can you just run down where the strengths on the defensive side of the ball exist in this draft class?
Yeah, it's definitely, I agree with you that it sounds like it's going to be a defensive bias, at least at the top of the draft, because you have your left tackle, you have your quarterback, you have your wide receiver. How many teams can say that they have young, solid pieces at all three of those spots? The defensive side of the ball that's how you keep games close. That's how you stay in games week to week, is to prevent the other team from scoring. And there are a lot of holes on the Giants' defensive side of the ball. You're going to be implementing a new scheme, a new philosophy, and it plays well to what this draft class brings. It's one of the deeper inside linebacker classes you ever see. And also at corner, which I think is a very under-talked about area of this roster, is that they're very vulnerable on the outside. And Harbaugh, with his defensive back bias, he used their first pick of the draft in Baltimore 6 different times on defensive backs during his tenure in Baltimore. And I think he might actually start bringing that mindset over to this team today, is like to this roster for this NFL draft, is that at corner and safety, it's a very deep group, but it also kind of matches up with value. So that's a spot that you got to look at in rounds 1 and 2 for New York Giants.
Dave, I know we haven't seen Dennard Wilson's plan for the Giants per se, using the talent they already have and what they still need. But just based on what is known about what Dennard Wilson ran in Tennessee, what the Giants have, what type of players, generally speaking, at the biggest needs, and again, they need players from front to back on that defensive side. What kind of characteristics and how are they going to differ than maybe what the Giants have done in the past?
I believe it's going to err towards what Wink Martindale was looking for. They do want to be they don't want to be scheme specific, role specific. They want guys that can disguise. And to disguise, you have to have a very versatile skill set. You need to know the game inside and out. You can't make a lot of mental errors. You have to have a lot of experience. I think they're going to lean into that when you're trying to project who this team will take, especially for the defensive side of the ball. You don't want to get a Jermon McCoy who really only played about a year and a half worth of snaps, or the cornerback from South Carolina, Cisse. These are guys who are good players, but I think they're going to be biased towards guys that have done it a little bit more, guys that have played over the 1 to 2,000 snap mark. And I think that's something that's going to be really important for this new defensive scheme. Guys that have proven they can play in different roles, they know the game inside and out, and they also play a physical brand of football. That's the number one trait I think they're going to be looking for, guys that play really physical and really smart.
There has been some early speculation that Caleb Downs, the safety, could be the pick at number 5. I want to get your take on him. Do you think he's worthy of number 5? And if you're the Giants, would you go there?
He's the 10th ranked player in the NFL draft for me. So very good player. And some people have him as number 1 or number 2. But the more I watch and the more I look at what safeties are doing in the NFL, the highest level, there are a couple holes a couple dents in his armor that, hey, it's not a bad pick. It's going to be hard to make a bad pick in the top 5 of this NFL draft class. And he certainly would not be a bad pick. But it's more about what are you passing on in order to take him. A couple of warts in his game that I don't see a lot of people talking about is the tackling technique. He doesn't have a lot of missed tackles, but he shows his eyes to the ground. He's not always looking where he's going. He doesn't bring his arms to the party. He doesn't wrap up. He's hey, throw my body into someone's waist and hope to get him down. More often than not, it works out. But when you talk about Derwin James, Kyle Hamilton from Baltimore, Nicky Manwari, a guy that really helped the Seattle defense this past year as they won the Super Bowl, they're all much bigger than him, a little bit more physical, but they're just a little bit more ranging, a little bit more able with their tackling and size, both mechanically and physically when it comes to the measurements, that I think he's a notch below some of those elite graded safeties. So while I wouldn't call it a bad pick, I think there are better options at number 5 overall.
Would you go defense in that spot, or would you go offense with receiver, which is another need?
Right now, pre-free agency, I mean, this roster is going to look very different in a month from now. So I think you'll have a clearer picture. At this point, in my opinion, everything's on the table. Running back, offensive line, wide receiver, defensive line, linebacker, safety corner. I mean, you really can look at, and that's one advantage of being year 1 of a John Harbaugh regime here in New York, coming from Baltimore, is you don't really feel a rush to get a spot, a player. And that's not what they did in Baltimore. They graded players. They took the best player. They're the team that drafted Kyle Hamilton after he fell. They drafted a center in the first round. They take the best football players. So I don't like to pigeonhole ourselves into one specific spot. I do think in Harbaugh's early days in Baltimore, year 1, they went quarterback. Year 2, they went running back with their first picks. And then they went 5 straight years of defensive players with their first pick. I do think he's a defensive-minded guy. I think there are more holes on the defensive side of the ball, pre-free agency anyway, that I would lean towards either linebacker or defensive back.
So speaking of linebacker, there's a lot of speculation the Giants are going to move on for Bobby Okereke. And just going back to your gut feeling that the defensive scheme is going to be more along the lines of Wink Martindale. Okereke had a really good year with Wink Martindale. That being said, the cap number just might not make it possible for him to bring back. So in terms of the type of linebacker the Giants might be looking for in the draft, assuming that they are looking for one, which I'm sure they are, would you go with a Okereke clone, or is there a way they can, or is there somebody that maybe has a little bit more of an upside than what Bobby brought to the table?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Bobby is a bad player. He didn't all of a sudden become a bad player. He's just aging, and it happens fast at the NFL level. If you just lose a little bit of a step left to right laterally, that's where I see it the most with him. It's just a little bit lack of athleticism left to right. In coverage, it shows up. Things can get ugly pretty quick. And you mentioned the cap number. I think that's the biggest the elephant in the room with him. It's just he's just not worth that money anymore. And at 5 overall, Sonny Styles from Ohio State is a guy that he's the general of the defense. He's a dispatcher, but he's also, and you'll see in the coming days, he's one of the best pound-for-pound athletes in the class. The guy's over 240 pounds. He's going to blow the workout out of the water. We've known that for a couple of years now. He doesn't turn 22 until November. He's a very young kid, has NFL lineage in his blood. A kid that he can do it all. He's a former safety. He actually played outside linebacker, the edge position that Arvell Reese played this year. That was Sonny Styles last year. So you're talking about someone that can do everything, top-notch intangibles, leadership, knows the game inside out. Those Ravens defenses, Ray Lewis, C.J. Mosley, Roquan Smith, they have guys in the middle that can really direct traffic, know the game inside and out, but they're also outstanding athletes, and that's what Sonny Styles is.
Hey, Giant fans, ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person? FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Use your profit boost on any NBA future, and you'll automatically be entered for a chance to win an NBA Finals trip for 2. That's right. Flights, tickets, the whole experience. If you're already looking at the board and thinking about which team can make a deep run, this is the perfect time to lock it in. I love futures this time of year, whether it's picking a team to win the championship or grab a conference title. It adds that extra layer of excitement to every game down the stretch. Visit fanduel.com to get started and use your profit boost on an NBA future and to be entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, Dave, now I want to ask you about just the first round in general, because everybody always says Giants should trade down. They're at number 5, trade down. Based on the work you've done so far, are there a lot of guys with legitimate first round grades that it pays to pay to trade down?
Two answers. There are not a lot of pure first round grades in this class. And I would even say further than that, there's not a lot of top 10 grades in this draft as well. Especially if you are into the positional value game, it's a pretty weak offensive tackle class. There is not a Malik Neighbors, Marvin Harrison, Rome Odunze wide receiver in this class. There's only one quarterback that's going to go in the top 10 most likely. Even at corner, you might not see a top 10 corner. Those are the spots that teams really want to trade up for. There is one position that I could see it happening. It's the edge defenders, because you have Reuben Bain, Arvell Reese, and David Bailey as 1A, 1B, 1C. Very different players. So based on the defense you run, you'll have them stacked differently. But if two of them come off the board before the Giants pick 5 overall, and then you have a team that's like, hey, we really want to get that pass rush presence, they could be someone that you trade up for. We saw Houston get really aggressive with Will Anderson, trading up for him in that CJ Stroud year. And that could happen in this draft class. That's probably the one and only shot that the Giants could move down from 5.
And how far down would you go if you're them, so as not to miss out on, a guy that has a legitimate first round grade?
Yeah, it's tough to know, again, pre-free agency, but I would want to stay in the top 12 to 14 picks, because if I am going to move down, especially if you're moving down that far, you're probably picking up an extra 1 next year, which is a great asset to have, a future 1. I hate being that guy, but next year's draft class is likely to be fully loaded at a lot of positions. So if you could get another 1, that would be a really nice move. But I still want to stay in the top half of the first round, because especially if you want to add a wide receiver talent, one of those top 3 guys, Jordan Tyson, Carnell Tate, Mekhi Lemon, they're probably going to go in the top half of the first round. You want to get your hands on one of them, or one of the offensive linemen if they let Jermaine Illuminor walk in free agency.
All right, now, assuming that the Giants don't go edge rusher, obviously a big question is, what do they do with Kayvon Thibodeaux? Do they move him and try to get back a 3rd round pick? Do they, what do they do there? What's your gut feeling given the strength of this class? Do you think they can afford to go another year with Kayvon and maybe just try again next year if they end up losing him?
Yeah, I do think it's just a year too late to talk about the Kayvon Thibodeaux trade, because how many teams are going to trade a premium asset for someone, a 1-year rental who has had a few durability issues, who's been kind of marginal with his production, a good player, and you're just not going to get that much because it's a 1-year rental. Then you're going to have to pay him next year. So to me, you keep him on the roster, and John Harbaugh, he wants to win this year. And that's what I like about bringing him in. He's not, hey, we're going to try to compete in 2 years. They want the playoffs in 2026. There is a path there. We've seen it with the Bears and Patriots in year 2 of their respective quarterbacks. Build the foundation around those guys. I mean, this is the time, guys. This is the time to build a complete roster when you're paying a quarterback a discounted rate. So if you have an extra pass rusher, to quote Ernie Accorsi, you can never have enough of them. So no matter what you end up doing with the other pass rushers on this team, Thibodeaux, to me, is better in a Giants uniform than getting some sort of 3rd or 4th round pick for him, which I don't even know if he would net that.
Last year, the Giants played the 3 of them, Burns, Thibodeaux, and Carter, only 164 times. Now, granted, Thibodeaux missed, I think, 7 games with the injury. But that being said, the challenge has been getting all 3 of them on the field at the same time. What is the answer based on what we've seen?
The best version of Abdul Carter is when you don't know when he's going to line up. I mean, that's where I did challenge the Giants' viewpoint on this last year. I wanted Abdul Carter. He was the right pick, but I questioned, was Shane Bowen the right defensive scheme to get these guys on the field at the same time? I trust what they have now, that they want to disguise. They want to confuse. They take a lot of pride in that. Some schemes don't do that. Some schemes do. The Giants are going to be a defense that tries to confuse you. So you could easily get these guys on the field at the same time. Because Abdul Carter, in my opinion, his best pass rush tape and consistency was inside, lining up as a stand-up linebacker, and you just didn't know. I mean, centers and guards, they were whiffing on him in a phone booth. That's a really hard to find talent. This is a guy that was among the league leader in quick pressures, meaning under 2.5 seconds, which is a huge trait for today's short, quick passing game in the NFL, that you're better off moving him around. Then occasionally you give these guys a few series off or a few plays off. He can go play the outside. But that's why I think it does make sense to have that third pass rusher here.
Dave, getting back to the trade question, if it's not going to be first round, is it maybe better for a team like the Giants to trade in the second round to maybe pick up that extra third round pick that they're missing, because they only have 2 picks in the top 100. So is the value maybe better there in the second round than it is in the first round?
Yeah, that's where I think you're onto something there. When teams go home after the first round on a Thursday night, they have all day Friday to look at their board, to make calls, to really do their due diligence about who wants to move down. That's why you see a lot of trades with this format. First round Thursday, day 2 Friday, day 3 Saturday. You see a lot of trades at the top of the second round. I think it's simply because these guys have more time to talk to each other about their plans and their intentions. And that's the spot I do think the Giants will have an opportunity to move down from, because this draft is very dense when you get from like 25 to 55. There's a lot of prospects that you could put into that tier. And John Harbaugh, 40% of his draft picks when he was in Baltimore were in the 3rd and 4th rounds. The fact that he only has 1 4th and 0 3rd is probably keeping him up at night. That's where they built a lot of the depth that showed up in later years. I would actually put money on the fact that right now Giants will be moving down in the second round.
That being said, I mean, let's talk about some, before we move to offense, let's talk about some of the guys we're not talking about enough of on the defensive side, some of the value picks for, like day 2, late day 3, and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's going to be a defensive line help added at some point, maybe even earlier than you're thinking. The Giants' defensive scheme, essentially, they need a guy that can play the 5 technique in certain 3-4 looks, but then can move to a 3-tech type role when they want to go to more of a 4-man front. And there's a guy named Grayson Holton from Oklahoma who's kind of made for that role. He's a penetrator. He might not be the most stout run defender, but if they can get another pass rush presence, because you don't know with Dexter Lawrence, we're hoping that 2025 was just a bump in the road for him. But if he does not bring that pass rush presence back to the inside of this defense, Grayson Holton is a guy that you really could see something working with here. Another guy that's a little bit later in the draft that is a true nose tackle, but he did show some pass rush flash, is Dominique Orange from Iowa State. They call him Big Citrus, just a wide, looks like a young Dexter Lawrence in some ways, and just how broad he is and how dominant he is against the run on the inside gas. But there is some length to him that gives him a pass rush upside. Those are 2 defensive tackles that I think could be really good fits here for the Giants, probably in round 4.
Hey, Giant fans, welcome to the 5-Hour Energy Flavor Draft. We're looking at every aspect of the draft to let you know which tasty flavors are the best and which ones might just be sleepers. The board is set, the flavors are ready, and only one is going to take the top spot. 5-Hour Energy has a wide variety of flavors, something for everyone, and their shots give you a boost with 0 sugar. There are so many great flavors to choose from, but the one that sits atop of my draft board is all day, every day, strawberry banana. One of my personal favorite fruit combinations for smoothies and frozen treats. So go on and find your new favorite flavor of 5-Hour Energy shots, available online at 5-Hour Energy. That's the number 5hourenergy.com, or hit up Amazon to get your favorite flavors today. All right, Dave, let's now switch over to the offensive side of the ball. All right. The mantra has been build around Jaxson Dart. They have, I should say, they're facing a potential shakeup of the offensive line.
Yeah.
In that Greg Van Roten may or may not be back. And even if he is back, maybe you want to still upgrade that right guard spot. We don't know what's going to happen with Jermaine Illuminor. John Runyon Jr., I thought was maybe, a part of the weak links, if you will, last year. And then there's still questions about John Michael Schmitz. So let's start with the offensive line there. What's the strength of the group in the offensive line, and how do you see the Giants maybe attacking that?
Yeah, I'm on the same page with you. I think that this offensive line is going to look very different, especially in 2027. They'll start the process this year. But if you go to the Ourlads depth chart right now, we have everyone in green, the color green, that's a free agent. And the right side of the offensive line, they're both green. And they're both guys you don't really know if you want to get too aggressive with financially in free agency. So that side of the line, to me, is the focus. And you could be 5 overall at Francis Mauigoa, the guard/tackle from Miami. I like the idea of getting him in the building and kind of figuring it out between who's playing guard, who's playing tackle between him and Marcus Bowe. Traditionally speaking, Harbaugh comes from a background of 320 plus pounds inside. Guys that move people off the ball. They'll give a little bit of size if you have athleticism on the outside. I think that's what Marcus Bowe is at this point. But if you don't go there in round one, I think you have a little bit more depth at tackle, and it kind of aligns with, hey, those guys, 1 or 2 of those guys should be there at the top of the second round if they stay put and don't trade down. But Daniel Jeremiah said this yesterday, and it's a really good point that has me thinking that if you're going to play the risky game of waiting on the offensive line, there's a good shot they're not going to be there at your next pick. Are you okay with that? And if you're not, you might have to boost the position value of the offensive line a little higher than what you're comfortable with right now, because you'd rather reach for one by a little bit than not have anyone left when you're back on the clock.
What about your thoughts on John Michael Schmitz? Again, a lot of people seem to want Tyler Linderbaum. I think that's just a luxury they can't afford, despite the fact that he would definitely upgrade the line. Schmitz, I thought last year probably had his best year. It wasn't a great year, but it showed improvement. Where do you stand on him?
I think he could definitely be the answer for this upcoming season. I wouldn't want to make a long-term commitment to him, but you're right. He did play better last year. I think durability is one of the concerns I have with him. Can he stay on the field? That's a big deal. You want Jaxson Dart to have the same guy in front of him for the entire season. If there are real durability concerns, I don't think he's good enough to really overlook that component to his game. I would like Tyler Linderbaum on paper, but the Giants do have a lot of money allocated to other areas of the roster right now, offensive line already being one of them. I mean, you can only spend so much on the offensive line. And even though I favor the trenches overall, to me, you can get by with John Michael Schmitz at center, but you better have a significant upgrade at that right guard position. He can be an okay center if he's really solidified on either side of him. But if you're not, you're going to need to upgrade that position as well.
All right, let's talk about the skill position players, because I think John Harbaugh, when he was with Baltimore, they played a lot of 12 personnel. I think they had it last year, the fourth most frequently, fourth team using 12 personnel.
Yep.
That being said, the Giants need a tight end, because I don't know if Bellinger and Manhurts will be brought back. And right now, all they have is Theo Johnson. There's also the thinking that they need a receiver. Wan'Dale Robinson, who's primarily a slot guy, is probably going to move on. In terms of prioritizing the tight end or receiver, where do you see the Giants maybe going, and where's the best value there?
It's a good question. I believe if John Harbaugh really wants to run the ball as often as we've seen in Baltimore, I mean, I put a tweet out last night, the NFL ranks of rushing attempts in Baltimore under John Harbaugh, I think 12 of the seasons they were top 10. They were number 1 in the NFL 4 different times, I think it was. So if he's going to be biased towards the run game, you probably have to get it. You have to probably spend one of these picks on a tight end. No one's worth it at number 5. You're playing with fire with that second pick. But a name like Oscar Delp from Georgia or Daquan Wright from Mississippi would be a round 4 tight end that I really do like to get in here, because if he can build into your philosophy. With that said, Okay, you only have so many picks. You can't fill everything in at once. And again, free agency could change this as well. If I'm the wide receiver is a position I think could be taken in the first round because of a Carnell Tate type, which is just an ideal complement. What Cincinnati has in T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, that's what I'm envisioning if you get Carnell Tate in the building. A true downfield vertical threat. Malik Neighbors can be your do-it-all, a little bit more biased towards the intermediate part of that route tree who can make things happen after the catch. I like having a wide receiver room that has different roles with different guys, and then you could easily fill in the depth behind them according to those roles. So, gun to my head at this point with the roster construction, I would be more biased towards the wide receiver because the kind of tight end they need, you truly can find those guys any year.
In terms of the receiver spot, I mean, Wan'Dale, even though he played outside, he was primarily a slot guy. How easy might it be to replace him?
I'm on the side where I think it is very easy to replace him. And I know he had a decent amount of production over the past 2 years. I like Wan'Dale Robinson a lot, but economics are now a part of this factor. I can remember back his draft year, he was one of my guys. He was one of my guys that I said, hey, day 2 talent, but this guy is worth it. But now you're talking about the financial component to it. And slot receivers are a little bit easier to find because they're a little bit more scheme specific. I also think that a lot of his production was manufactured with a really short passing game. I mean, his average depth of target, his average per catch was always near the bottom of the league out of everybody. And when I look at this draft class, I mean, I can give you 5 or 6 different slot receivers, whether it's round 1 with Mekhi Lemon or on day 3 with Aaron Anderson from LSU or Deion Burks from Oklahoma. I'm confident they can bring the same level of play as Wan'Dale, but at a fraction of the price. And that needs to be part of the equation.
Dave, you mentioned the running game. The Giants have Tyrone Tracy. Cam Scadaboo's going to be back. Do they need to maybe invest a little higher in another running back to round out that 3-headed monster, if you will?
Yeah, I'd like to have the number 3 is in my head. A lot of people talk about 2. I like 3 backs in my backfield because, yes, it's a volatile position with injuries. I also think that I'm a little worried about the play style of Cam Scadaboo. I know we all love it. I don't want him to ever change, but you do have to account that style of play. It can lead to a few missed games every year. And Tyrone Tracy, to me, he's a guy that I don't know if I'm going to make long-term plans around. Solid years, especially down the stretch last season. But I've watched him enough. I watched him a lot at Purdue, where to me, he's a guy you can find almost every single year. So I think running back is definitely on the cards. The debate is it Jeremiah Love at 5? I know there's going to be some PTSD with Giants fans, and I would lean against it right now with the construction of the offensive line, but that can change a lot in the next 2-3 weeks. So Jeremiah Love, it's a weak running back class, especially to what we saw last year. Let's take Jeremiah Love out of it. One name that I'm really high on, he's actually my running back number 2 in this class, is Mike Washington from Arkansas. Watch him this weekend. Special combination of talent. I thought his tape this year against his best competition in the SEC was big time. He's 225 pounds, and he was among the nation's leaders in yards of runs of 15-plus yards. I mean, and he does it right. You can tell he knows what he's doing. So that's not a name that if you could sneak into the 3rd or 4th round, depending on trade downs and where they actually end up, I would love to have a 3rd guy. And I know Harbaugh would as well, because that's what they usually did in Baltimore. They force-fed multiple running backs to keep them fresh, but also to hedge against a potential injury.
So in that regard, I mean, Jaxson Dart is also a running quarterback, just like Lamar Jackson was. Do you anticipate that to increase with this, offense that's coming in, or, especially given Jaxson Dart's, kind of recklessness sometimes?
Yeah. I mean, hey, Greg Roman's in the building, and he feeds off of the quarterback run game. He's not Lamar, but Justin Herbert, who Roman worked with, he had a great year running the ball last year. He was among the NFL leaders in just run game production from a quarterback. So I do think he'll be a part of it. I think that the tricky part will be trying to just keep the wild horse out of Jaxson Dart mentally. Like, it's okay to take a knee. It's okay to not get the extra 2 yards. And you just hope that comes with maturation. I think that's more on him than the scheme itself. That's going to be a big part of what Jaxson Dart needs to grow up with a little bit, that, hey, we'd rather availability is the best ability for a quarterback.
And then finally, Dave, speaking of Jaxson Dart, for year 2, I mean, last year he spent a lot of time out of the shotgun.
Yeah.
And I am of the opinion, you can tell me if I'm wrong on this, but he's going to eventually have to do a little bit more under center. I mean, that's to me the next logical step in the progression. Where first off, do you agree with that? And second off, what does he need to do, or what does he need to show, logically speaking, in year 2 to show that he's still on the rise?
Yeah, I mean, Jaxson Dart, everyone's kind of already kind of celebrating that the Giants have the quarterback of the future. I think you do, but he's got a few things to prove. And one of them is being under center with a little bit more production. He didn't do it at all in college, almost. So, again, I think it's okay to take your time with that progression with him, but especially with a game that is going to be run game bias, at least this upcoming year, if you believe Harbaugh and what he wants to do philosophy-wise, he is going to be under center more, and you do have to make sure the footwork is automatic. The progressing through your reads as you're starting to play with your back to the defense, like how quickly can you do that? Jaxson Dart knows the game. He works hard. I think he'll be fine. But again, you have to prove it. We're not projecting anymore. It's now prove it time. And so to me, I think Jaxson Dart, I would love to see him simply just refine the mechanical part of the game so that he's automatic with ball placement and accuracy to all levels of the defense. He can make every throw. He's tough in the pocket. He's strong. But if his footwork starts to get a little bunched up, because he is a little bit of I call a backyard quarterback where things aren't always lined up, but he's got so much arm talent that he always relies on it. But to me, that's the difference between being good and great, is that you use that arm talent when you need it, not because you want to. And if he can refine some of the footwork and just feel and to continue to progress under pressure and make throws down the field, which again, he didn't get to do that a lot once Malik Neighbors was out, but we did see glimpses. I just think for him, it's being about more consistent and staying on the field.
Dave, great stuff. I do appreciate you coming on. I always enjoy talking ball with you. He's great. David Syversten of Ourlads Scouting Services. You can check them out. Dave, tell everybody when the draft guide's coming out.
Yeah, so we're going to try to get it out a little earlier this year. We have an earlier deadline because we're going to try to get it out the first or second week of April. So you have a few weeks prior to the draft rather than the week of. We also will have a PDF format so you can get it the second it's ready. That's probably going to be a bigger part of our future here at Ourlads. And you could also subscribe to a newsletter, ourlads.com. It's free every Monday, NFL Draft Bias, every Friday, NFL Biased. And those are things that can kind of keep you up to speed. But to get the full scouting reports of everyone that you want that book in front of you draft weekend, ourlads.com, draft guide right at the top.
And Ourlads has been doing it a long, long time, going back to the 80s, if I remember correctly. Yeah. So they're one of the oldest and best publications out there. Giant fans, do check them out. Check out Dave's work and follow him on X. He's putting out some really great stuff. Dave, a pleasure. Thank you so much. Giant fans, thank you so much for tuning in to the Locked On Giants podcast. We'll see you on Monday with all new episodes.